Good morning to you all. This is Alison Dougal speaking from Dublin. I'd like to wish you all a very good day and introduce you to this presentation which Sheila and I have prepared to update you on where we are really following the survey that you also kindly filled in for us, and thank you very much for that. So the aims of the survey were many really. First of all, we wanted to get to know a little bit more about the individual members of the group and the countries in which they're living. We wanted to know about each person's own special interests and experience, and a little bit more about information regarding the teaching of and also provision of care, arrangements for care for patients who have special needs in each one of your member countries. For planning purposes, we really wanted to know about who was planning on attending the forthcoming workshop in Antalya, and certainly what they would be wanting from that workshop, which work streams, for example, would be preferable to them. We also were starting the round one of a Delphi process, which we are going to use hopefully to get consensus opinion regarding the global curriculum development with which we've been tasked by IADH. So for those of you not familiar with the Delphi technique, I've actually, with the email, sent a couple of, I think, very good review papers which outline the use of the Delphi survey technique as a flexible but certainly rigorous group technique which is used to seek out and explore information to generate a consensus opinion. And I think the good thing about the Delphi is that as judgments are correlated via a series of questionnaires, it's possible to also for the respondent to get feedback regarding the diversity and interrelated aspects of this topic as things go along. Because the characteristics of a Delphi panel are such that, number one, you need expert input, and yes guys, that's us. The benefits over meeting face-to-face or a committee type situation is that people's feedback remains anonymous from each other, which allows people to be to make their own judgments and not be swayed by others, and also within a committee for not the more vocal people, which are often the minority. Sometimes the minority view is not used so much to sway the judgment of the whole group. So a Delphi technique is basically a series of questionnaires, iterative, which is iteration, repetitive questionnaires, where the results of the one questionnaire form the basis for the next one, and controlled feedback to the group for a statistical group response, so the group can see where their views are in relation to the rest of the group. To do this, rather than doing postal questionnaire as is usual, I decided to use, for the first time for me actually, the SurveyMonkey tool. It's something I've been familiar with for a long time but never really used, but I found it, so far I found it very user-friendly. And where it's had advantages for our group is that not only could we send emails to everyone to fill in an online survey, but that those responses are then held securely online, and then that data can be imported directly into an Excel or SPSS spreadsheet. So very useful, also good for people who are for multiple users if you've got several people looking at a project. So I would recommend that so far. We did a pilot survey just to check out our questions, and then, as you know, emailed a link to all members of the Skype group, and then I sent 3 reminders over a 4-week period to get our responses back. And actually the response rate was very good. Delighted. We sent the link to 48 people, and we had responses back pretty quickly from about 44 people, which gives us a 92% response rate. And these 44 people will now hopefully form the core group of our Delphi panel for our consensus experts panel. Of those 44 responses, those came from 24 different countries worldwide. We have all four corners of the globe represented. I've listed the countries here. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can see from as far from Hong Kong to France to Canada to India through Peru, Denmark, etc. So that was very positive. When we looked at the group, one of the questions we asked, because this is all about training in special care dentistry, is where our group had received their own training for special care dentistry. We saw that the majority of the group, 11 of the group, had received their or the biggest group, should I say, had received their own training via their paediatric specialty training. A slightly smaller but very welcome number to see is that further 9 of our group had accredited special care specialist training. A further 9 had held certificates or diplomas, and others in the group had masters or doctorates or had received their specialist training via other specialist programs. Examples given were restorative, oral medicine, for example. And some people, and thankfully, were honest enough to say they had no formal special care dentistry training. I had actually expected that group to be larger. When we looked at people's special interests, we saw that one of the good things when you look at this graph is that you can see that the light green at the top shows us that across the board of all of the groups of patients that we were looking at within the group, we have members of the group and whose special interest is that group. So we know that we have the depth of interest within our group. And so then we went on to ask people within their own country which patients would fall under the umbrella of special care. And you can see the yellow is the people is on the graph is showing people who agreed that these patients came under the umbrella of special care in their own member countries. And you can see certainly towards the middle, which is the adults with intellectual disabilities and developmental disorders, there is real great consensus that these form the core of a special care syllabus. If you go towards the right, towards older adults, you can see that there are a number of people who are either not sure or disagree that this group of patients would fall under the umbrella of special care. And if you move to the left, you can see, moving towards the paediatric end, that there are also a sizable number of the group who are either not sure or don't believe that children belong under the umbrella of special care dentistry. So this is, I think, initially where we need to get we need to get our consensus opinion. There were also some other groups who were brought to our attention by some members of the SCIPE group who thought that we should have included adults and children with dental anxiety under the umbrella. And certainly this is something that again can be addressed by our Delphi group, and prisoners who probably actually would fall under the umbrella of institutionalized adults, and possibly we needed to define our terms so people are clear with who we're dealing with. So those were the 2 groups that we have to perhaps consider extra. So the question we asked people were who was planning to come to Antalya. We're hoping with our Delphi panel that most of the work, or most of the nitty-gritty work regarding syllabi, will have been completed before we get there by the group, which gives us opportunity really to tease out the contentious areas, to actually discuss teaching methodologies, how this curriculum could be used, how we can learn from each other. And we were delighted to find that 38 of the group are planning on, or certainly definitely attending, and only 6 at this moment have actually said definitely that they cannot attend. And this will be great because we will have 22 member countries represented. When we looked at what people were wanting to do as part of the workshop, we saw that really fell into three groups pretty equally, between those who priority was undergraduate curriculum, postgraduate curriculum, and those who were very interested in research, development and educational methodology, with a smaller group, understandably, who were wanting to look at development of online resources. Regarding teaching methodology, when we actually looked at what's been taught in our universities, we could see that there's lots of things to discuss here, that teaching is being delivered via didactic lectures, e-learning, observation, hands-on teaching, outreach visits, and other subjects that people draw attention to were things like dissertations, problem-based learning and public health projects. And we can see that within the group people have experience and are currently providing teaching at both undergrad, postgrad and specialist training levels. I think we would be very naive if we believed that a global syllabus was going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. And I think we have to bear this in mind. But I think equally that the core elements of special care dentistry seem to be pretty consistent globally, according to what we've seen so far. Most people are in accordance with the definition of the patients that fall under this umbrella. And surely undergraduate and postgraduate training should reflect this. The information that you provided us with has shown that across the board there is great variation in both the access to teaching in special care dentistry and the access to care for patients with disabilities. So I think that what happens locally with any syllabus document is going to be just that, is going to be according to local need. However, I think that we can address this by taking a modular approach to any syllabus, to allow it to address local need, to allow it to be weighted according to the patient groups, or to be converted into certificate, diploma or master's programs as required. So we've completed the first stage of our process. We now officially are a Delphi panel. So all I could ask is for your continued assistance and goodwill as we go through the process. And I'm really, really delighted to be working together in this group and looking forward to meeting many of you for the first time in person in Antalya. So from Sheila Thompson and myself, Alison Dougal, I'd like to wish you a very good day and thank you very much. Goodbye.